All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the weekly Subspace Infrastructure Sync. We talk about the backend, kind of architecture in the cloud, what we're doing right now to get all of our test nets working. So we're going to start off today. Nazar, if you could give us an overview of what you've done to set up the CI/CD pipeline for Subspace monorepo, please.
Okay, can you see this screen share?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the major file from the pull request. It's basically a new workflow. Every time we have a new tag, which starts with snapshot, we'll do two steps. The first job is to build container images. So we basically build node and farmer in parallel. For everyone, we log into the container registry. We collect some metadata to populate tags and stuff. And then we build and push the image. Then we do something specific to our use case. We basically take the same image we've just built and we generate chain spec files from it, raw and regular JSON files. Then we upload those files as artifacts to the kind of to the build system in a way. You can download it later if you need to. And then that's only happening for node image. And then again, for node image, we also publish those as assets to the tag, the same tag that we've just captured. Then we have executables as a second job. It depends on container images because it expects these artifacts to be uploaded. So it needs this chain spec file to actually work. We build it for Ubuntu, macOS, and Windows. And this is like straightforward. We check out the source code. We download those artifacts we've just built. Configure Rust toolchain, some other stuff to install dependencies and fix some things. And then we build. For Windows and Linux, we'll build with CUDA support. And we will also enable this feature, which will basically take that chain spec file we just generated, which is deterministically needs to be the same on all of the chains. And we will include that in the build. So by default, it builds the chain spec for every instance separately, and they will be slightly different. But this way, we have exactly the same chain spec embedded into every version, such that you just specify -- chain testnet and it will connect to the network properly. macOS the same thing, but without CUDA feature. And then we rename those files to have the operating system and the snapshot name in the file name, and we upload them as assets back to the release. How it looks, it's basically like this. This is the first part. We will have, let's say, the snapshot test I've created like 20 or 40 times yesterday. And we basically have some assets. So we have chain spec files, we have farmer images for all of the operating systems, and node images. And I tried the Linux version, seems to work. There are operating systems which it was built on in the name. It might not work, for instance, on Windows 7. This is more like Windows 10. So that's why they're named this way. They're not like installable or anything, just download it and just run it. All that's necessary. And if you go to packages, we can see there is a node image and there is a farmer image. If you go there, there will be an image with snapshot test tag. So this is basically what it automates. Every time we create a snapshot something, it will create artifacts and it create container images. Yeah, that's basically it.
So we're not using Docker Hub anymore for anything.
Not really. We can actually try to push both to GitHub and Docker Hub because Docker Hub is kind of like GitHub for source code. Like if you want to find a container image, you will go there first. So it might be useful for like discoverability, but otherwise it's like easier to integrate with GitHub's container registry. I think as long as we have GitHub container registry in the documentation, should be okay. But we can push there as well if need be.
Okay, please, guys, if you don't understand this or if this is confusing to you, please ask your questions now. This is like a really important thing that everybody needs to understand in sort of the build process, like that we have this ability to, that we've automated, or that Nazar has automated this construction of binaries and Docker images now for all platforms. Okay. Nazar, is there any documentation on this?
Not really. It's like standard actions. I didn't create any of them. Just assembled together as Lego. I guess the documentation will be to include like all of these new images and how like to download those artifacts and how to run them in the documentation, which is not covered right now. So that will be the documentation part.
Yeah. So Ozgun, can you take over in the README of the root of monorepo? Can you write like one paragraph, like don't go overboard, just like a paragraph or a few sentences on this is, we have an automated build process. It builds X, Y, and it builds for these platforms, and it also builds Docker images. Here's the folder with a link to get to these builds. Here's how to, and then the Docker should already be in there. Just make sure that the Docker part kind of matches to, that this is automated and here's where the latest images are.
Sure, of course.
Okay. So these are, so basically we have the latest master branch built now. We've tested this, and this is all the.
This is not the latest one. This is like from yesterday. We've merged several pull requests since.
Okay.
Basically, every time we want to deploy like a new version from the master or whatever branch, we just create the tag on that branch, and it will prepare all of the artifacts for it. So these are like compatible with each other because we have things breaking from time to time.
Okay. And how long did it take for that to build on average?
Oof. I restarted it many times. That took me like the whole day of trial and error because of some documentation problems. Let me find. I think I can find this one. Yeah, it took like over an hour when it succeeded. But I did many trials of about an hour in between. Yeah, it's like maybe an hour and a half for everything. It will first build container images, so it will like bottleneck these, and then these are built in parallel.
Okay, that's much faster than we thought it was going to be. We were thinking it would be like a day or something like that.
No, it's not.
Or hours. Okay, great. Okay, so we should be able. So in theory, Justin should be able to go run one node on Windows, one node on Mac, and one node on Linux, and they should all connect to the testnet and sync and work.
Yes. Documentation needs to be updated because these change specs do not include Bootstrap node. So depending on where you run it, you need to specify an argument where to point to the Bootstrap node. But other than that, yeah.
Ozgun, can you update the documentation as well to reflect what Nazar just said, please?
Sure.
Do you understand that?
No.
Can you repeat that, Nazar?
I guess we'll sync up afterwards because, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, Justin, your priority is to test all of this. Okay.
Okay.
So work with Ozgun, like sync up with Ozgun, sync up with Nazar after this. All right. After we get this documentation corrected and you know exactly what we need to do, like how we're supposed to spin these up, I'd like you to run each one of these nodes in each of these different environments, and sync it and test it. And I guess there's a fourth, which is to run it in Docker as well, because there's native Linux and then there's Docker. So really, we should test all four of these environments in parallel. They should sync, they should farm, and they should and we should just confirm, does it work? My expectation is it will probably not work on all four environments perfectly the first time. And then we need to start creating issues in GitHub, documenting this and getting it back to the dev team so we can get these fixed, okay? For any given environment, after we have it working, then we pass it out to the team. Okay, so like once we get it working on Mac, then I need you to update the you know, the core team, the employees, contractors of Subspace Labs, and everybody should be running one. Okay. Once we get all three of these environments working, then we can update the ambassadors. Okay, and the ambassadors can get them running. Once the team and the ambassadors are running, and we've identified all the issues that they find, then we can get it out to the community, to people on our Discord, people on our Telegram. We can tell them that they can run a testnet node. Okay. So that's so we're there. We're ready to start public testnet. We just need to start do like a gradual rollout, kind of like a progressive decentralization of the testnet. Okay, this was a big step that Nazar just got this working. But I expect we're going to have a lot of sort of teething errors as we deploy this. We just need to start resolving them now. This is all setting us up for success with the incentivized testnet that we're going to be doing in a month or two.
Awesome.
Great. All right. Anything else on that? Great. Okay, Serge, can you walk us through the issues that you'd identified in your testing?
Sure. So on dev environment, there was simply no space at some point, and Farmer and Node stopped producing new blocks. So previously I resized the volume, but I didn't resize the file system. So Nazar resized file system, and after that I restarted everything, and so far it works okay. On test A, there was a configuration in which endpoints didn't have API keys, because on test A, Relayer still uses on finality endpoints. So we were using like free public endpoints, and they were returning like bad responses. So I updated configuration and I restarted Relayer as well. And test B, that was an interesting one. On logs, everything works just fine. No outstanding issues, but everything is a little bit slow. So I don't know exactly what's going on there.
It's the oldest deployment, like we've done so many
Yes.
changes everywhere.
Okay, how is test A fully synced yet?
No.
What's the bottleneck on that one, or what are we waiting on?
Slow API.
I think it already processed everything from archives like a long time ago, and currently it just fetches blocks over the network, and it takes time.
Okay. Can we be more specific? Are there any particular chains we're waiting on? Do we have any idea how long it's going to take before it will be at the same state as test B? Or sorry,
There's
test-
just half of state mine, and there are quite a few Kusama blocks, and probably some other chains. It's like 10 more
Okay.
gigabytes is missing.
Okay. All right, and so we need that to get caught up before we can do a transition between which one is public facing. And do we have kind of an estimate on how long that's going to take at the current rate, like days, hours, weeks?
We can actually speed it up. If we download the latest archives, we can restart it, and we can catch up to almost the head of the Kusama and significantly advance in state mine, for instance. Probably others.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about that. So then what is you said that you had updated some of those over the weekend, Nazar?
I updated everything. Just state mine is not quite the latest because it was very slow. It would take like 5 more days maybe to sync to the head. Maybe not that much, but it will be quite a long time. So yeah, I've just uploaded that to the regular folder we have on one of the servers. I deleted the old one. And I also updated the torrent file on Google Drive if someone wants to download some of those archives. Just one file, you can like select in torrent client what you want. Yeah.
Okay. So Serge, can you get those updated in the cloud, and then we'll go ahead and restart that testnet A to and it should sync faster.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then once testnet A is synced, we can make that public facing. So that's kind of our goal right now, is to get testnet A public facing, which has the latest and greatest. Then we can reboot testnet B, get rid of all this old images that we have and probably all these weird issues that we're seeing.
And recite CPU and replace the disk and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we can kind of get everything consistent across the board finally. Cool. And so testnet A and B only have Kusama, right? It's only on the DevNet that we have Polkadot and the new parachains for Kusama.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Okay, and what is the status of the DevNet sync?
I don't have like particular numbers of how synced we are. I was just checking if there are issues or not. So I can calculate and update you later.
Okay. It's like 15%, maybe 20%.
It seems like it wouldn't be very hard to add into the UI something that would just do this for us, like that would show like a progress bar or like a percentage of like what is the head of this chain versus where are we at, because we seem to be sort of like manually like sort of Kentucky windaging all of these things every single time, whereas we could just make it part of the UI of like what is the status of all these chains, like what's the estimated time or something like that, like some kind of a progress bar, I would imagine.
We'll have to establish connection to Kusama and Polkadot relay chains and just wait for new blocks to be included. And then we can see like what is the head of every one of those.
Okay. All right, let's think about that later. Okay. Leo, do you have any updates on your side for anything on the infrastructure or the environments?
No. Just comment that test B environment is still pending to be upgraded to a dedicated machine. So when we make this change to test A, let me know so I can scale this machine, increase the volumes and everything.
Definitely. Okay. And then
and also open the RPC endpoint on 9955 port at the same time.
Okay. Great.
I thought
Okay,
we agreed
so-
that we will have subroutes for that in Nginx. Instead of opening HTTP WebSocket unsecure.
Yeah, sure. I think that is just adding a new domain and a new configuration.
No, we
Same
don't need
rules,
new domain.
just
We
no?
discussed that we want to have subroutes on the same domain.
Just with a dash, right? Slash, yeah. Yeah, I was waiting to restart a machine to do that. I'm testing.
Okay. All right. Anything else we need to discuss on the infrastructure side? Any other open questions or issues here? Anyone? Okay, great. So just to recap, so Ozgun, you're going to work on updating the documentation to reflect the new build process that we have in GitHub and to make sure that we have the correct commands on how to start the nodes with the right bootstrap, or how to start, the nodes with the right bootstrap node configuration. Justin, you're going to work on testing the binaries and the Docker image across these different environments. Communicate any bugs you find back to the team, specifically back to Nazar and Ozgun right now, and start debugging this. And then we're going to start the gradual rollout to the team. So our goal would be by the end of this week to have everybody on the team running a node, kind of like we were 2 months ago. And then next week, I'd say realistically, we should have all the ambassadors running a node. So that means in about 2 weeks, we should be at the point where we can have community nodes running, which I imagine we could have like 50 nodes pretty quickly with the amount of people that have been asking to run a node. And then Serge, you're going to get all of the cloud archives up to date from the latest torrents. And then that should get testnet A synced up faster. So hopefully very soon we'll be able to have testnet A as our public facing testnet. And then Leo, you will be able to switch the pointers there, and then we can update the image on testnet B, or sorry, update the instance on testnet B, get everything up to date with the latest images there. In the meantime, we're syncing dev to include Polkadot and soon to be statement once we have Docker images running there that you're working on, Serge. So after that, the next phase is going to be getting dev to, I guess that would be test B at that point, to sync test B to have Polkadot and any parachains that are live on Polkadot as well. Does that sound right? Did I get anything wrong there?
So for test A, we are not including Polkadot and the new parachains, right? Only
If we
those we had already on test A.
Yes, unless we have demonstrated that on dev we have Polkadot and the new parachains working correctly already.
Sorry,
We have
could
a
you
small
repeat?
disk on test A. Let's not add new parachains there.
Okay. So no new parachains and no Polkadot on test A.
Yeah, let's get that working in dev correctly, like clearly, before we make that deployment. But soon, like maybe next week, we can get that done.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you again next week.